Good evening, everybody. Breaking news tonight. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled against President Trump's executive order calling for extreme vetting. The panel of 3 appellate judges unanimously ruled that the temporary restraining order on the executive order will remain in place for now. That executive order presumably on its way to the Supreme Court. We have special coverage for you tonight of what has happened as a result of the appellate court ruling. We have a lot of news to cover as well. Beyond that, President Trump standing by his choice of Judge Neil Gorsuch for the Supreme Court. The president instead taking issue with Senator Blumenthal, saying the senator misrepresented Neil Gorsuch.
His comments were misrepresented, and what you should do is ask Senator Blumenthal about his Vietnam record that didn't exist after years of saying it did. So ask Senator Blumenthal about his Vietnam record. He misrepresented that just like he misrepresented Judge Gorsuch.
What was Gorsuch thinking, however? He insulted the very man who nominated him to the high court. We take all of that up here tonight. Also, the newly sworn-in Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, vowing to support President Trump in all respects in all of his policies.
We need a lawful system of immigration, one that serves the interests of the people of the United States. That's not wrong, that's not immoral, that's not indecent.
And restoring law and order to this country is a tall order for the Trump administration. We take that up with Ed Rollins, Michelle Malkin, and other guests here tonight. And Wall Street today hitting record highs after the president says he will make a major tax cut announcement over the next few weeks.
We're going to be announcing something, I would say, over the next 2 or 3 weeks that will be phenomenal in terms of tax.
The Trump economy, it is roaring, it's booming. Is anyone tired of winning yet? Our top story, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals tonight ruling against the Trump administration, upholding a temporary restraining order on Mr. Trump's extreme vetting executive order. The president promptly responded on Twitter saying, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake." The Ninth Circuit Court's unanimous ruling stated this, among other things. Quote, "We hold that the government has not shown a likelihood of success on the merits of its appeal, nor has it shown that failure to enter a stay would cause irreparable injury, and we therefore deny its emergency motion for a stay." The Justice Department argued the extreme vetting order is a traditional national security judgment that is assigned exclusively to the political branches of the Trump administration, and the administration now has a number of options to pursue in the wake of the court's order. One, to ask a larger panel of judges at the Ninth Circuit to hear the appeal on the temporary restraining order, to ask the Supreme Court to weigh in on an emergency basis, to accept the appellate court order, go back to the Seattle-based federal district court, and begin anew. Joining me now on the phone, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, this order coming from the most reversed and the most left-wing appellate court in the country is no surprise, but it is, on its face at least, shocking to see their dismissal of the Constitution, the constitutional powers that are reserved for the president.
You know, Lou, I have been harshly critical of the Ninth Circuit in the past, and I was earlier tonight, but they really have reached a new low. The absence of intellectual honesty in this case strikes one in the face just before you even get to the 3rd or 4th page. The Constitution assigns to the president unambiguously the role of making the nation's foreign policy. Doesn't even give it to the Congress. Congress is limited in foreign policy to ratifying treaties and confirming ambassadors and funding the State Department. For this court to assume that these judges can second-guess the president and say, we are not satisfied that the danger from these people coming from these 7 countries is sufficient to bar their entry into the United States for 90 days, is literally taking the judicial mind and putting it in place of the presidential mind in an area that the Constitution gives exclusively to the president. Yesterday, when the president addressed the the group of police chiefs. He did something I've never seen a president do before, not for the first time from him. He read aloud the statute on which his executive order is based. He read exactly the right statute. He read exactly the right words, that every president since Harry Truman has this tool given to him by the Congress. And the tool is the ability, on his own, unappealable, unchecked, doesn't need the advice and consent of anyone or anything, to suspend the immigration rights of any person or group that he and he alone deems as dangerous to national security. There isn't even room for judicial interpretation of that.
And as he read that from the statute, so clear, so plain, as he put it, anyone could comprehend what its meaning was intended, what it was, and what it is today. But what is so rankling here tonight is that this court in San Francisco has just dismissed the lawfully elected president of the United States and upturned the relationship between that president and the constitutional powers that are his alone, and dismissing tens of millions of American voters in so doing. This
may I add a phrase to that, Lou?
Surely.
And put themselves in his place instead, by balancing the nation's foreign policy against the rights of immigrants to come here, which is a privilege and not a right, as if they were the president, in an area that the Constitution and the statute give exclusively to the President of the United States.
Judge, may I ask you to stay with us here? We're also joined by the Arkansas Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge. I'd like to bring her in. Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, David Rifkin, who is with us tonight. And Leslie, let me get your reaction. You've heard the judge and his assessment of this order from the appellate court. What is yours?
Well, unfortunately, not many of us in the legal community were surprised by the Ninth Circuit's decision. Certainly, we're disappointed, but again, I think as Judge Napolitano pointed out, that we have activist judges who are putting themselves in the place of the president. The president has made it clear that this order was a constitutional right of his, as well as a congressional and statute. That's 8 U.S.C. 1182. It's plain language, as you said, Lou. It's plain language that the president alone has the power and the national security, to protect our national security, rather. And that's exactly what he was doing. I'm confident that the Justice Department, under our new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, will be able to win in court, and that we can protect America. And that's exactly what this president, that's why the American people got behind him. It's because that they were sick and tired of the policies of the past that did not protect the American communities. And
David, your assessment?
I agree with both General Rutledge and Judge Napolitano, but I would say, in addition to utterly lacking in the merits, this decision is absolutely wrong as a matter of standing. What the court basically said is that the public universities in the state of Wisconsin, because they spend some money on processing visa applications and paying for it for certain individuals who actually have no guaranteed right to come into this country, because the issuance of the visa is totally separate from whether or not you'll be allowed to enter. Whether or not you're allowed to enter is a discretionary decision that can be changed at any time. In effect, they speculated that those individuals be allowed to enter. Somehow they have standing to sue. That is a total perversion of a law and standing, Supreme Court case law and standing. That is the basic limitation of judicial power. So my view of this is an example of judicial aggrandizement. Leaving politics aside, this is not about holding the president to the rule of law. This is about holding everybody to the rule by the judges.
Yeah, I think the word aggrandizement is interesting, given that Neil Gorsuch has now entered into a new realm by criticizing the President of the United States, talking about his disheartened state as a result of criticism of judges that are openly political, openly biased, and absolutely resistant to the Constitution, rather than using it as both a guide and a finite border to the conduct of government officials. Judge Napolitano, this is right on point, it seems to me, to the fact that Neil Gorsuch spoke poorly. He spoke perhaps unethically, and certainly without any class or gratitude toward the the president who nominated him to the high court.
You know, I want the Senate to confirm Neil Gorsuch. He is a worthy successor to Antonin Scalia. He shares a view of the Constitution that David Rifkin and I have, that the president has, and that many of the people who supported the president do. But judges need to have thick skin. In return for lifetime tenure, you have to have thick skin and realize you don't enter the political fray. You make a decision in your courtroom. You don't get involved in the political wars that the rest of us do. Now, I don't know if he ran these words past the White House first, and they said fine. I don't know if Senator Blumenthal put his own spin on it. He apparently did by using the word abhorrent, which was his word, and not
the other words, though, Judge, were corroborated to be both from the confirmation team and Senator Ben Sasse as well, corroborating his language. So there's really no question about the fact that he did use those words.
I don't think the president got as angry as Lou Dobbs did over this.
He did not, and he is a man of greater grace and generosity of spirit, and proves it almost daily. I admire the man's patience with the obstructionism and the frustrations of the will of the people in the person of our president. Attorney General, let me ask you this. What are we to do here? I understand that we see the prospects of appeal either en banc in the Ninth Circuit Court or moving to the Supreme Court itself. But my Lord, this is on its face such a rebuke to the American people and to this president. Basically, the court ruled the hell with the American citizen and his or her safety. We have a different view of the world, and therefore ours will prevail. It's appalling on every level.
Well, the order itself is appalling because I think, as the judge pointed out and David pointed out, that the language itself in the order is insulting. They're putting themselves in the place of the president. And yes, the Justice Department has some decisions to make as to which one of those three avenues they want to take. I'm confident that they are going to take one that will be a winning strategy, and that if it does go up to the Supreme Court, which we expect it will, that the Supreme Court will, quite frankly, look at the law and actually apply the law and the written words of the law, as opposed to activist judges who are applying their own policies in the place and putting themselves in the place of the president. And unfortunately, we have seen activist judges across the country, and perhaps that is what we are seeing here.
Yes. And David, I'm going to, if I may give you the last word here. At 9 of the 13 circuits in this country, the appellate circuits, they are liberal. Certainly, there's no question that the 9th is the most liberal. But they are guiding an estimated 35,000 cases a year. This is a nation that is now taking on a direction, a momentum, and a foundation that is increasingly every day more liberal. What can be done here, and how can this administration protect its responsibility to represent the will of the American voter and the national security?
Two points, Lou. I think first, it is essential to bring the sense of balance and the sense of respect for the Constitution, certainly first and foremost at the Supreme Court level and the courts of appeal level. If necessary, I think it would be useful to add new judges for a judicial bill to a number of key circuits, and I very much believe it's going to be done. But let me just inject one note of caution. I have no confidence in the way in which Judge Gorsuch's remarks have been conveyed. It is entirely possible that is not what he said, that is not what he meant, and it is entirely possible, in my opinion, to construe what he said, truly said, as expressing a sense of being disheartened by the decision by the district court in this case. We just don't know. I hate to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, I didn't jump, I assure you. I picked up the evidence as I walked down a straight path of corroboration to what he did say, as I mentioned, both the confirmation staff led by Kelly Ott, who is herself an ever-Trumper, Senator Ben Sasse as well, corroborating what Senator Michael Blumenthal said. I would gladly hope that your case for ambiguity about it all prevails, because it's correct. I just fear not. Thank you very much, David Rifkin. We appreciate you being with us. Leslie Rutledge and Judge Andrew Napolitano, thank you. Terrific to have you here. We're coming right back. There's much more going on in Washington, and some of it far more pleasant. We'll share that with you next. Stay with us, please. Protests erupting outside a Phoenix Immigration and Customs Enforcement office. They were protesting the deportation of an illegal immigrant who was ordered out of the country 3 years ago. Guadalupe Garcia de Reos, taken into custody by ICE Wednesday during a routine check at ICE offices. In 2008, she was arrested in a workplace raid. She was then convicted of felony impersonation and served 6 months in ICE detention before being released later that year. A judge had issued a deportation order back in 2013 against her, but it was never enforced by the Obama administration. ICE today issued this statement. Ms. Garcia's immigration case underwent review at multiple levels of the immigration court system, including the Board of Immigration Appeals, and the judges held she did not have a legal basis to remain in the United States. Joining us tonight, Michelle Malkin. She is the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates on CRTV.com. Michelle, great to have you with us. I want to apologize. I am a little heated about the reasoning, if you can call it that, and the judgment of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yes, no need to apologize, because I share that peeving feeling that you have, Lou. It is appalling, because not only are they taking aim at Trump's authority and President Trump's executive orders, this is a wholesale overturning of statute, precedent, history, what our founding fathers intended. And, you know, there is a saying in the immigration lawyers community. I have been covering this issue for a quarter of a century, and my first book, Invasion, in 2002, talked about this. The motto is, it ain't over till the alien wins. And whether we're talking about the aliens who now have this constitutional right to immigrate, thanks to the Ninth Circuit Court, or if we're talking about all of these millions of people who have been ordered deported and yet have been allowed to stay, and then turn it into some sort of entitlement and are galled when somebody like President Trump comes along and says, guess what? Tap you on the shoulder. It's time to go. It just shows you just how tyrannical the people in robes have become in America, and they're running amok, Lou.
They are running amok, and I can't sit here and say to anyone listening to us, watching us, that I'm confident of what the Supreme Court will do. A 4-4 court, Neil Gorsuch, the president's nominee to the High Court to take the seat of Antonin Scalia, he does not want anyone to criticize a court. He thinks that it's disheartening, disruptive. He sees a court system that somehow is a finer and purer place than ever demonstrated by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I think this court needs great scrutiny, and certainly not less.
Yes, I think a no comment would have been the most judicious thing that Judge Gorsuch could have said. Unfortunately, he didn't exercise that kind of judicial restraint, so I share your concern, Lou, about those comments. But I'll tell you what, I think a breakup of the Ninth Circuit would be a very first concrete measure that would benefit American law-abiding citizens in this country, and Congress certainly has had that on the plate for a long time and done nothing about it. What's the point of having Republican majorities if they aren't going to do what is in their power currently to rein in these courts run amok?
I understand the impulse and the reasoning to split the court, but with 9 of 13 circuits already dominated by the left, I think we would only add, another circuit and have likely 2 more courts that are left-wing instead of reducing them or removing them both. So we'll see. But let's turn to Jeff Sessions, Senator Sessions now, Attorney General Sessions, a man of great character, a man of the law. What is your sense of how he will do? And how long is it going to take to roll back what has been really 16 years of lawlessness in this country because the Bush administration refused to enforce immigration law and to secure the border.
Well, it's a Herculean task, but he has an incredible team behind him, and to the extent that he can wrest control back on behalf of American workers and American citizens, it's going to be a huge relief, and it is the #1 best thing that President Trump has done with regard to his nominations, in my opinion. And I do want to talk about this issue of standing, because here you have a case where liberal states like Washington and Minnesota have standing to upend immigration law, and yet American citizens who have sued, whether it's on H-1B policy or sanctuaries, have been denied that standing. Jeff Sessions will stand on the side of those American workers in restoring sanity to America.
That would be a very nice and welcome condition for this country to acquire. Sanity. Michelle Malkin, always great to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
Appreciate it. A few quick thoughts now, if I may, on Judge Neil Gorsuch, who was back on the Hill today, just a day after the Supreme Court nominee made disparaging comments about the president who nominated him, and Kelly Ayotte, a senator who lost her seat because she was, in large measure, a never-Trumper. She defended the comments of the judge, saying this, quote, while he made clear that he was not referring to any specific case, he said that he finds any criticism of a judge's integrity and independence disheartening and demoralizing. Well, Judge, I think you're full of it. I believe Judge Gorsuch is speaking as if the judiciary were sacrosanct and pure, even though it's awash with political bias, much like the rest of government, and it is certainly not holier than the rest of us. Liberal control of appellate courts is not to be ignored. It surged under President Obama. Liberal majorities control about 70% of our appellate courts. They handle an overwhelming number of the cases in our judiciary system. 3/4 of donations from attorneys and their firms go to the Democratic Party. In the 2016 election cycle, that was an increase from 2012. Never mind that 53 senators have law degrees. We're not going to pay attention to that. And please do not pay attention to the fact that 214 out of 435 members of the House of Representatives have law degrees as well. There is a problem here, don't you think? And it's one that we should be thinking about and talking about and doing something about. As for the president's criticism of the judiciary, don't forget President Obama very publicly rebuked the Supreme Court during his 2010 State of the Union address. Where was Judge Gorsuch's disheartened moment then? President Obama at the time talking about the Citizens United decision, to which Justice Alito responded himself, not true. I believe the judiciary will not be immune to scrutiny, and it should not be. And Judge Gorsuch would be wise to apologize at the very least to the man who nominated him to the high post he will likely win in confirmation. The man he owes a great deal of gratitude and not any basis for insult. Gorsuch, by the way, also broke ethics rules by speaking about political matters at all. And he spoke so loosely in front of his mortal ideological enemy, and that is one senator, Michael Blumenthal. I believe Gorsuch has really demonstrated a lack of honor. And if he has honor, he should withdraw his name out of just the pure disrespect he's shown our president, his lack of grace. Not very smart for a man with degrees from both Harvard and Oxford. We'll be right back. Alabama's Attorney General Luther Strange has been appointed to the Senate seat, now vacated by our new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Luther released a statement saying, quote, I pledge to the people of Alabama to continue the same level of leadership as Jeff Sessions in consistently fighting to protect and advance the conservative values we all care about. Joining me now, veteran of 10 presidential campaigns, Ed Rollins, leading Republican strategist. Good to see you. Your reaction to the Ninth Circuit Court decision?
The only thing shocking to me was the Republican who voted with the two Democrats. Two Democrats had already voted on this. Most people didn't realize, so I was not surprised at that.
Had already voted against.
Had already voted against it. It's an appalling decision. Basically, it's limiting the powers of the president. And what I would hope the president does is, I mean, obviously they fired off. I'd hope they take 24 hours and take their time and figure out what they're going to do, because they got to win all the way. This is too important to this country. It's too important to this presidency. He has the vehicle and the Constitution, and basically get a good strategy here and implement that strategy.
Yeah. My good friend Judge Napolitano pointed out I was far more exercised at this result, he thought, probably than the president even, who's dealing with frustration that
sure, but deliberately,
to me, incalculable.
Sure.
Jeff Sessions, one of the finest men in the Senate, served for 20 years in the U.S. Senate.
24.
He gets one Democratic vote.
Who's the conservative Democrat,
Joe
should be a Republican.
Right.
I find it appalling, and I think what it basically tells us, the last 2 to 3 cabinet posts have been up there. Dobbs, who basically is a very respectable woman, who basically has an interesting idea on education and has made a tremendous effort in education. She has to have the vice president break a 50-50 tie. Jeff Sessions got the worst vote ever in the sense of the numbers against him for any attorney general. And Rex Tillerson, who obviously is a major player in the community, got the highest vote against him for any Secretary of State in the history of the country. So what tells me is the Democrats are going to basically, and the ones that are more controversial are coming forward, that we're never going to get the 60 votes on our major legislation or what have you. Let's just get rid of that stupid rule. And it's a house.
You're beseeching Senator McConnell to get rid of the closure and to go nuclear, as they say.
I don't think it's nuclear. I think it's what's fair.
Well, it's what they call it.
There's nothing in it's their own rules. And obviously, if Harry Reid was willing to change the rules to their benefit 4 years ago, we'd ought to change it to our benefit, and it ought to be 51 votes.
The president has made it clear to the majority leader that he wants that. Right. I don't see any reason for hesitation. Is there some political reason?
None.
Is there some clever nuance here that I can't absorb?
None whatsoever. It's just going to make every one of these things, everything the House passes, is going to have great difficulty getting to the Senate, just because you got a bunch of Democrats that are going to vote against it deliberately because that's their strategies. So my sense is we've got all the games now. It's our ball. House, Senate, we will have the court. Let us have the opportunity to move the ball forward. If we can't move it forward and make it better for the country, then throw us out.
You're talking about having, historically, the greatest number of opposition votes against the confirmation of Dobbs and Tillerson and Sessions.
Right.
2 Republicans, Collins and Murkowski, also voted against Dobbs. And so it's a narrow, thin edge there that the Republicans hold.
Anytime, and there's always a couple, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, others who are kind of always out there against Republicans. All it takes is one more, and we basically aren't going to win this thing. And so my sense at this point in time is let's work on our own side. Let's move the ball forward. And obviously this court decision is going to be very, very important in the very near future.
The president talking about a phenomenal, is his word, his adjective, tax cut that he'll put forward in the next few weeks. Is it your sense that McConnell and Ryan are ready to move toward that phenomenal tax cut, that it was one of the reasons that people voted for President Trump?
They should be. Dave Camp was chairman of the House Budget Committee for 4 years. He had every kind of hearing there was on taxes. Then Ryan became the chairman, and before he became the speaker. They know what they need to do. They've had all the hearings in the world. They've had all the witnesses in the world. They know what will move the economy forward. First and foremost is lowering the business tax. And if they don't do anything else, they can get that done quickly.
They can get that done. They can get the the middle class tax cut as well, because I think that's critical. But I do believe if they are tempted to raise taxes in any form, including the 20% import tax, that's a tax on the middle class. That's a tax on the consumer, and it would be absolutely. And I know Paul Ryan and the Illuminati of the House are behind it. They're dead wrong. You don't put that on the American people.
If I drink a Corona beer, it's going to have 20% more cost on that just because.
Yeah, but I know you. You'd have that beer anyway.
I'm a Scotch drinker.
Might make me buy one or two.
Yes, I will.
Ed Rollins, great to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Quite a day, extraordinary day. Please vote in our poll tonight. The question is, do you believe the Supreme Court is capable of making an honest, fair, politically neutral judgment on President Trump's executive order if President Trump decides to appeal this decision directly to the court? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. We'd love to hear from you. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Tonight, the state of Texas one step closer to withholding state dollars from its so-called sanctuary cities after a bill cleared the state Senate. It now heads to the House. More than 1.8 million illegal immigrants live in the Lone Star State. That's second only to the winner is the state of California. Joining me now, Congressman Brian Babin of Texas. Congressman, great to have you with us. Let's start with first of all, the sanctuary cities. This president, as you know, wants it stopped. Governor Greg Abbott wants it stopped in the state of Texas. Are we going to see it finally get done?
I think we will see that, Lou. Good to be with you tonight, by the way.
Great to see you.
Great to be up here in New York City. Nasty weather and all.
We've had a little of that.
But, yeah, I think this is a very, very important step. I really take my hat off to our governor, Greg Abbott, and to our colleagues there in the state Senate in Texas.
You bet.
So I'm proud of them, and this is something that really needs to be done.
Yet Houston and Dallas both started talking about my home is your home if you're illegal, the undocumented, as they prefer. I mean, we're going to watch quite a collision in the state of Texas, which would have been unthinkable, I believe, even 5 years ago.
Right. Well, that just shows you how far we have shifted to the left nationally because of 8 years of Barack Obama, and now they've shifted the goalposts of the whole debate. So this is where we are.
6 in 10 illegal immigrants live in 20 metropolitan cities, as cities are wont to be, metropolitan areas, including 3 of them, as you see there in the great state of Texas. That is the bulk of the problem right now, and the number of counties and cities and states wanting to be sanctuaries in direct violation of federal law, it seems inconceivable, except that perhaps after 8 years of Barack Obama, they think they can get away with it, and 8 years before that of another Texan, George W. Bush, that they can get away. That's 16 years in which immigration law and national security hasn't been enforced at the border.
Lou, this is exactly what these executive orders of our new president would do. They would start making us enforce immigration law, try to bring in local governments to help the federal government enforce this immigration law, to establish the rule of law at the border, as well as in what we call interior enforcement, get rid of catch and release, eliminate these sanctuary cities. You know, there are some dead American citizens tonight because we don't enforce that law, because of the sanctuary cities. Kate Stanley comes to mind.
Sure.
Right off the bat. What a tragedy. And then we have our...
But, you know, we've got more Americans dead than that. Our inner cities are rife with illegal drugs. We're permitting the destruction of generation after generation of young Americans, primarily, who get hooked on these drugs. We hear a lot of lip service about the war on drugs. We hear, you know, so-called professionals scoff at the very idea that you could actually interdict drugs and stop their crossing the Texas, Arizona borders, California borders. That border with Mexico that's where the majority of meth, amphetamines, marijuana, cocaine, and heroin cross.
Not to mention the human trafficking.
Yeah, not to mention, that's why, exactly.
Right.
So if there isn't enough motivation in this country to do the right thing and follow our president and his lead on this, I just can't imagine what it would take. Because there's got to be an explanation. Either everybody is corrupt on both sides of that damn border, or they don't give a damn about human life or this country.
We have to be a nation of laws. We must start enforcing the law. We've got to. What more important duty do we have as elected officials than keeping our citizens safe?
And the cartels that run a good part of Mexico, government after government in Mexico City hasn't been able to contend with them. No. They now have infiltrated the United States. We've got over 1 million gang members in this country. MS-13, the drug cartels themselves, are behind nearly all of the violence in this country and all of the murders. Drug violence is just overwhelming the country. And the President Trump became the first president to sign an executive order to create a task force to fight the drug cartels in this country.
I support this president 100% on what he's doing. And I think we as Republicans and we as Americans need to rally around this president. We've seen, quite frankly, a rogue Ninth Circuit court that overrules him, and now we must go on further. It's going to be a further delay, and I fear that America is going to be much less safe because of this, because of these programs.
Just hope that no one gets killed in this as a result of what the Ninth Circuit Court has done in clear violation of the correct interpretation of the Constitution. And congratulations to you, as you, I know, are patiently pushing your legislation through to control refugee and vetting in this country.
Plus deport criminal aliens.
Yes, which would be a novelty in the country after the past 8 years.
Right.
Congressman, great to see you. We thank you so much.
Always good to be with you, Lou. Thank you.
Congressman Babin, thank you very much. Tonight, new concerns about Japan's crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant. Radiation levels there have now reached the highest that it's ever been since its catastrophic meltdown in 2011. The dangerous developments prompting new fears along the west coast of this country. Small radiation samples have been taken, radiation detected along Oregon's coastline at Tillamook Bay, Gold Beach, as well as California's coastline. Scientists tell Fox News that they are concerned that it could now get worse as radiation seems to be building, and there is great fear that the containment floors have seen a melt-through as a result of the immense radiation that is building. We'll keep you up to date on it. Scientists beginning to take note and take some concern. Up next, the president's chief detractor in the Senate at it again. President Trump blasting Senator John McCain, saying he's emboldening the enemy, questioning a January 29th raid in Yemen. Mike Gallagher, Bree Payton, take all of that up here next. Just moments ago, President Trump talking to the White House press pool about the Ninth Circuit Court's ruling against his executive order.
It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a political decision? We have
a situation where the security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court.
Sir.
President Trump speaking right after learning of the Ninth Circuit Court refusing to stay the TRO against his executive order. Joining us now, political reporter for The Federalist, Bree Payton. Bree, good to have you with us tonight. And Mike Gallagher, host of the Mike Gallagher radio show on the Salem Radio Network. Great to have you with us, Mike.
Thank you, Lou.
Bree, let's start with you. It was not unexpected that the most left-wing appellate court in the country would make this ruling. Some are surprised that all three judges, including one George W. Bush appointed judge, joined the other two in opposing the request to lift the stay. Your thoughts tonight?
Yeah, I guess I'm not so surprised that the Ninth Circuit made this decision. As someone who, was born and raised on the West Coast, I'm kind of used to very liberal decisions coming from this court. I think that the president has made it clear that he plans to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. It sounds like at least he's planning to fight this decision and continue with his plan and with this travel ban. So I think it'll be an interesting next couple of weeks to see which court they decide to take it to, and if they're going to try to appeal both elements of this decision, or if they're just going to go after the more extreme vetting part of it.
Leftist obstructionism, it's coming from the Senate in the nominating and confirmation process. We're watching it every day. Ed Rollins here earlier, Mike, pointing out that Sessions and Tillerson and DeVos all had the highest numbers of opposing votes, if you will, of any nominees in presidential history.
Got Chuck Schumer talking about being sick to his stomach over Jeff Sessions, the personal vitriol, the obstructionism, the nastiness.
Do you think he really he looks to me like he's in political theater. He doesn't mean any word, good or bad, that he utters.
I keep saying that's all they've got in their arsenal. They don't have the votes, and ultimately they don't have the Supreme Court. So, you know, the only thing that would have been shocking is if the Ninth Circuit, this notoriously left-leaning court, would have supported the constitutional authority that the president has. This is no surprise, and it's not a big deal. This is business as usual on temporary restraining orders from this liberal court, the Ninth Circuit Court. What people ought to stop forgetting is how this president continues to prevail. He will outlast them, he will outwill them, and ultimately, I don't know why people are forgetting the complexion of the Supreme Court in about 6 to 8 weeks. So, you know, like some say, everybody needs to just take a chill pill here and calm down and realize he's going to prevail.
You are quoting Rahm Emanuel these days? My goodness.
No, I didn't mean that. Don't put that on me, Luke. Come on. I didn't mean it.
Bree, this obstructionism that goes on, and I think Mike is exactly right. This president and the great team that he has put together in the White House are going to prevail. But the frustration level has to be extraordinary. Because in every respect, he has the will of the people to represent. He knows that he has ultimately the votes in the Senate, whether it be confirmation or ultimately legislation along with the House. What is your sense right now of whether the Democrats will, no matter how futile, continue to be just obstreperous and venal and mendacious and awful?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the Democratic Party is in shambles. The leadership is a mess. They're not really sure what to do with Donald Trump or how to effectively oppose him. And the media is kind of taking that cue and also having fainting spells on the regular 5, 6 times every single day, right? That's all that we're seeing from the Democratic Party and from the media, is every single thing Donald Trump does, they decide to have a fainting spell, you know, and come at it guns blazing. And instead of taking up an effective strategy and picking and choosing, you know, which fights are important and which fights aren't.
Go ahead, Mike.
We're in a cycle, if you can picture this, where the media is losing its mind over Kellyanne recommending people, you know, buy Ivanka's products. I mean, think about this.
And some of the Republicans, you know, led by Chaffetz in the House, going after ethics considerations.
Are you kidding me?
Are you out of your minds over there? I mean, they're just such little darlings. I can't tell you how objectionable they are.
And it's petty and it's nasty.
Not all the daffodils are in the Democratic Party, is my point.
No, you're right. But look at every one of them and how much they opposed President Trump all throughout the campaign.
Candidate Trump.
Candidate Trump. Very important to watch their track record.
And, you know, McCain today, the president went after him again. McCain did misspeak without question on the raid in which the U.S. Navy SEAL was killed. Your reaction, Bree, to the harsh tone that the president brought to the disagreement with Senator McCain?
Yeah, well, I think the objective, since the objective of the raid is classified, I think that you or I are not going to know if the raid was a success or ultimately if it was a failure, right? That's something that the president knows as the commander-in-chief. So, you know,
well, his point is McCain shouldn't have opened his mouth about it. And I don't think there's much argument that that was a poor decision on the part of McCain.
Right. I think, you know, I think that he did maybe step into a little bit of hot water by talking about that there. And I think, however, I think that in response to what the president had to say about it, you know, at the end of the day, John McCain is a war hero. So, you know, I think we should be careful in how we talk about him and the way we treat him.
We all honor Senator McCain's service, but that doesn't mean that he's, you know, treated with kid gloves and can't be challenged or disagreed with.
Or can dishonor in effect. Not his intent, but dishonor the service of another who served the country and made the ultimate sacrifice. I don't think there's any argument with the president on that. That the senator was wrong. The tone is, you know, is pure Trump, and that's who. That's one of the reasons we put him there. He's speaking plainly.
We have a commander-in-chief who doesn't want to call a mission a failure, even when a hero dies fighting for his country. That, for many of us, that's pretty admirable.
Yeah, it's it's a tough time right now, and people are going to have to get used to one thing. The President of the United States is going to prevail on this. He's setting the tone. He's setting the standard. And he's insisting on plain spokenness. I think he deserves great credit for that. Neil Gorsuch, the Federalist, the Heritage Foundation, Bree, vetted this fellow, one of 21. On paper, this man looks terrific, and yet here he is making comments like he's disheartened at the criticism, implicitly criticizing our president, his president, who nominated him to the highest court in the land. What is wrong with him?
Well, as you say, it does seem kind of odd, right, that a Supreme Court nominee would go around and almost kind of talk about him behind his back. That seems kind of odd. So I'm almost kind of wondering that maybe he's talking in this way in cahoots with the White House, right? As we mentioned earlier, and as we talked about earlier on the show, the Democrats have been crazy in opposing every single person that the president has nominated, even uncontroversial figures like Betsy DeVos, right? So
this
I
is
think
a sorry
maybe
currency,
he's doing
though,
this.
of disrespect to the president.
Well,
if this were a conscious strategy, it's a sorry currency to spend to win nomination. I think the standard should be much higher than that. I hope that's not the. I hope what you and others on this broadcast have suggested just simply isn't the case. I'd rather this man has enough character and intellect and talent to stand on his own.
You're completely right. Yes, so, you're completely right. But what I was trying to say is that I'm wondering if maybe the directive to say this came from the White House. Does that make sense? Like maybe the president is kind of okay with him saying that.
And if I may, Lou, I like the argument that many make that perhaps this is a way to have some daylight between the Supreme Court nominee and the Trump administration, which will make his confirmation process even all the easier. Who knows?
All the easier. Want to bet? Want to bet? Bree Payton, Mike Gallagher, thank you all. We appreciate it. Thank you both. Welcome back. Another busy day for the president, who earlier hosted a bipartisan group of senators at the White House today, lobbying both parties to back his Supreme Court nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch. Republicans need 60 votes as things stand now to prevent a filibuster, but Republicans only hold 52 seats. They'll need at least 8 Democrats to join them to override a filibuster.
A lot of people are liking him very much on the other side, and I think that because of politics, perhaps they're not going to vote for him. I think that's a shame, because that's not being honest. And that's one of the reasons that our country is in stagnation in so many different forms, in so many different ways. I think it's very dishonest, and I think it's very unfortunate, but we'll see what happens. I think he's doing very well.
And former Senator Kelly Ayotte, who lost her seat in part because she was a never-Trumper, is ironically helping Gorsuch as he speaks with senators, releasing a statement today trying to clarify some controversial comments Senator Blumenthal claimed Gorsuch made to him. Quote, Judge Gorsuch has made it very clear in all of his discussions with senators, including Senator Blumenthal, that he could not comment on any specific cases and that judicial ethics prevent him from commenting on political matters. And the White House today defended Trump's jabs at the judiciary.
The president's going to speak his mind. It goes back to Thomas Jefferson, that presidents have commented on judicial nominees. I mean, the idea of one branch talking about or commenting on another branch is as old as our republic. So I don't know why, and I find it interesting when President Obama criticized the Supreme Court for its Citizens United comments in the State of the Union. There wasn't a similar concern about that.
President Trump today also signing 3 executive actions that set up task forces as part of his effort to reduce crime. The orders establish 3 Department of Justice task forces to fight the Mexican drug cartels, to reduce violent crime in this country and reduce attacks against our law enforcement officers. Joining me now, attorney, political analyst Gail Trotter, chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Slapp. Thank you both for being here. Gail, first, the president obviously has to be disappointed with what has happened in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Even though everyone expected this result, Is it your view as an attorney that that he can prevail, that national security and the national interest can prevail in a split Supreme Court?
He should prevail, and he should not be disappointed because the Ninth Circuit is the most liberal of all the federal circuits, and they have the highest reversal rate by Supreme Court decisions of any of the circuits. So the fact that the Ninth Circuit decided to act this way shows that they're really just politicians in black robes. And I think President Trump will ultimately prevail because the Constitution gives him plenary power over immigration and national security. And there's statutory language that even a bad high school student could understand.
Well, I want to explain one thing about plenary, if I pronounced it correctly. It's one of those words that lawyers use.
Sorry.
It means total control, right?
Right. Immediate, original. The fact that he has full dominion over it.
Now, there's dominion again. Now, see what you're doing to us here, Gail. Thanks.
Sorry. Whereby, hereas.
Hey, Lou, why don't you start talking to the bad high school student over here now?
Okay. You're up, partner. And I know better than that. Let me turn to you. I mean, are we to really believe that the Supreme Court, given that we know that 70% of the appellate circuits, that is 9 out of 13, are liberal, and they act like it. And suddenly the Supreme Court, now with a 4-4 split, is a place of a bastion of integrity, neutrality, objectivity, and the public interest? I hope you're going to say yes.
Yeah, yes. Look, we have a judicial emergency here, Lou. First of all, on the issue of this EO, Donald Trump has the moral case, he has the clear legal case, and the politics of this are going to work out for the Republicans as well. The sad thing is the issue that underlines it is our security and our very lives. But when it comes to the question of how Republicans handle judges and how Democrats handle judges, including the Supreme Court, we have a woeful record, and it's time to reverse that. And it's time to reverse it with the nomination of Neil Gorsuch, and I think several other openings on the Supreme Court.
Let me ask you both. Neil Gorsuch, at the center of this, and the irony of it all happening on this particular 24-hour period, saying that somehow our judiciary should be beyond scrutiny, it should be beyond public criticism. I mean, that to me was a statement by I should be kinder. It was not a wise statement, nor one that it makes any sense at all. Objectively, coming from a man who has a PhD from Oxford, went to Harvard and Columbia, has an impeccable record, a great talent. What could he possibly have been thinking to say that, Gail?
Well, clearly that's not the case, because otherwise we wouldn't see people going to protest in front of the Supreme Court. We talked about President Obama lecturing the captive audience of the Supreme Court justices during his State of the Union against the Citizens United decision. You might also remember in the run-up to the first Obamacare decision, President Obama lectured the Supreme Court justices from the Rose Garden at the White House. Clearly, the Supreme Court is subject to political pressure. That should not be the case. That's not how it was intended. But certainly it has become more and more politicized as we have gotten away from the black letter of the Constitution. And the Supreme Court justices who are on the left have decided to invent a panoply of new rights that the founders never envisioned.
Matt, let's turn to this confirmation process. And as I said earlier, and Ed Rollins will be joining us here momentarily. But he pointed out this evening that, that 3 of the president's nominees, Tillerson, DeVos, and Sessions, all had the greatest opposition of any presidential nominee in presidential history. Is that in itself enough to say to Mitch McConnell, the majority leader of the Senate, it's time to go nuclear and work on the simple majority for Supreme Court nominees, for confirmation, for everything? Move ahead, because the Democrats are intractable, they're unreasonable, and absolutely fervently committed to destruction of not only this administration, but to, as in the instance of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, another ideological conflict. They give a damn about the national security.
I think that Mitch McConnell and the Republican senators will do any legal thing it takes to get Neil Gorsuch confirmed, and that if that means they have to go nuclear, I think they will. I think they don't want to commit to doing it yet because they don't want to act like they can't get the votes beforehand. Remember, Lou, it does take a 60-vote threshold, but there's really never been a successful aggressive filibuster against a Supreme Court nominee. If the Democrats decide to do this, it is war. And
It's war right now, Matt.
We ought to just acknowledge
this is war now.
I agree.
And you're going to have greater casualties. I mean, I am very distressed at the way that this nominee to the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch, has conducted himself and the classless remarks he's made about the president implicitly. But I think that he deserves confirmation. And to lose him would be, I think, disastrous.
Well, Lou, the problem with his comments, if he made them...
No, they've been corroborated. They've been corroborated by Kelly Ayotte, the other people on the confirmation staff from the White House. They've been confirmed as well by Senator Ben Sasse. It is not simply a one source. I would not be this far out on this particular platform if it were not corroborated. So I assure you, this is not a one source issue.
Assuming that he said it, the problem is not that it demonstrates a lack of loyalty to President Trump. The problem is not that it demonstrates a lack of gratitude for the nomination. The problem is this is what Republicans always fall into. It's thinking that if they curry favor with the Democrats, that will appease the left. It never, ever works. And this is yet one more example.
Matt, you get the last word, partner.
Well, I agree with Gail, and the fact is we need to have people...
How about me? Do you agree with me about anything?
I agree with you, Lou,
you.
as well. I think, look, we need to have very courageous people on the nation's court of last resort because guess what? Every big issue will now go there. It's just the way it is these days.
Yes.
The court intervenes on everything.
Absolutely. Matt, thanks for being with us. Gail, thank you very much. We appreciate you both being here.
Thanks, Lou.
Great to be with you.
On Wall Street, a record-breaking day for stocks. You know, all of that concern about Trump policy and economic policy prescriptions. Well, we've gained over $2.2 trillion since he was elected in market cap in our stock markets. And the Dow today at a record high after gaining 118 points. The S&P 500 at a record high after gaining 13. And the NASDAQ at a record high after gaining 33 points. All indexes at new all-time highs, all three of those. Volume on the big board, 3.7 billion shares. Shares of Twitter plunged 12% today after Twitter posted a net loss and slowing revenue growth in the fourth quarter. A reminder to listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, the big question. Will the president appeal to the Supreme Court? A live report coming up from the highest court. And some of the country's best legal minds join me here shortly. David Rifkin and Josh Blackman. Stay with us as we assess all of the breaking developments, our special coverage of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, its ruling, and the Trump administration's response continues. We're coming right back. Just over 2 hours ago, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco ruled against President Trump's executive order calling for extreme vetting. Fox News senior Washington correspondent Peter Barnes is at the Supreme Court tonight and has the latest for us. Good evening, Peter.
Hey, good evening, Lou. Well, a lot of legal experts believe that because of the issues involved in this case, that eventually the Supreme Court will hear it. However, the issue tonight and going forward for the Trump administration is whether or not it wants to file for an emergency appeal to either to stay the stay, which is, or to overrule the stay. That is, to overrule the appeals court decision to keep this injunction from the president's executive order from going forward. The administration says it is looking at all of its legal options, is reviewing the decision, but as of right now, it is just pointing to a tweet from the president that you probably already reported on earlier, saying, "See you in court. This is an issue of national security." Now, if the administration decides to file for an emergency motion, an emergency appeal, it would go to Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, who has jurisdiction over the Ninth Circuit, the states out west, and then he could decide to either ignore that appeal and let the appellate court decision stay in place, or he could decide personally if he wants to overrule it and then let all the legal proceedings continue. But then he could also ask his fellow justices, the other 7 justices on this court, because of the important issues involved, whether they want to hear this case, in which case you're back to the question of the divided court. And if the divided court were to split evenly along ideological lines, it would be just the appellate court decision would be left in place. So trying to play all the options out here. Right. That's what the legal scenario looks like from the Supreme Court point of view.
Well, Peter, thank you for that. And as you say, there are a few breaks in the path here for whatever does transpire, in which, if that split court does stay split along ideological lines, as you say, the Ninth Court decision stands, which supports the district court judge in the Western District of the state of Washington. And not a wonderful contemplation for this president, who is trying to pursue this executive order and implement it in the interest of national security. Peter, thanks so much for being with us here. Peter Barnes, keeping us surprised as always. Courts on the West Coast are proving to be somewhat troublesome for the Trump administration. Fox News correspondent Dan Springer is in Seattle. That's right. That's where Judge James Robart first blocked the president's executive order. Good evening, Dan.
Yeah, good evening, Lou. And just following up on Peter's report about what the president tweeted about, we'll see you in court. Well, right after that, Jay Inslee, the governor, the Democratic governor of Washington State, said, "We've seen you in court and we've beaten you." And his attorney general said, "We've seen them in court twice and we're 2 for 2. And they're pointing out, as claiming complete victory here with the ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that they have taken him on twice. And in the 4 judges that they have seen, 2 were appointed by Republican presidents. But we've done some research on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and it has earned its reputation of being left-leaning. It's heavily stacked with appointees from the Jimmy Carter presidency. And also, and we did a little research, in 2012, for example, it was an especially bad year for that court. Of the court cases that were reviewed by SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, 86% of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals cases were overturned. Now, they don't review all of the rulings, obviously, from the Ninth, but of those that they decided they had to take a look at, 86% were overturned. So this is by no means a final victory for the state of Washington and their lawyers, but they're basking in the glory now of victory that they say is total and complete, and they believe that they will win at the Supreme Court, and they say that they will take it all the way up there if they need to. Lou?
Yeah, and meanwhile, that victory could cost American lives, so I hope they're not clicking their heels too loudly. Dan, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Dan Springer from Seattle. Joining me now, David Rifkin, a senior fellow for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He served in both the administrations of President Reagan and George H.W. Bush. And Josh Blackman, associate professor at South Texas College of Law in Houston, an adjunct scholar at the Cato Institute. Thank you both for being with us. And David, thank you for your return.
Pleasure.
And Josh, let me just get, if we may, a sense here of where we are headed when we have 70% of the appellate courts that are liberal, and in large measure because of the impetus given in the appointments of Barack Obama as president. I mean, this is an overwhelming deficit of Republican representation in the appellate structure. But in the case of the Ninth Circuit, it is utterly appalling. They're reversed. They seem to be practicing law from the bench in a way that is just wildly left-wing and disappointing to just about everybody.
There's one judge in the Ninth Circuit named Stephen Reinhardt, and he often jokes about the Supreme Court. They can't catch them all. So he's made quite
well, that
light
is
of the
very
fact
funny,
that,
actually.
It is, and he's quite serious about it. So President Trump's options at this point are quite limited. He can do, first, seek an emergency stay from the Supreme Court, and that's followed with Circuit Justice Kennedy. At that point, he would need 5 votes to get a stay of this ruling. Second, he can seek what's called petition for certiorari before judgment. This would mean that this is such an important case, the Supreme Court should hear it right now. But the problem with either of those approaches is he's down to 8, and Justice Gorsuch will not be on the bench by the time either of those happens. So it's a risk of going to the Supreme Court and losing, and it might be better if not appealing now and coming back to the court when you have a full bench in stock.
And David, do you have a sense of what the Trump administration might propose to do in that case?
Well, George is right. There are 2 options. There are a couple more options. The administration can just decide to gain time and allow this to return back to Judge Robart, not because they're going to get any good shake from him, but just to stretch it out for a couple of months and then take it up to the Supreme Court once Judge Gorsuch has been confirmed. Or the administration can do something quite different. They can withdraw this order. They can write it in a way that sidesteps some of the portions of this decision. I don't know which way they're going to do it, but I want to say one thing for the benefit of the viewers. This is not about this executive order anymore, as important as it is. This is about a fundamental assault on the separation of power, unprecedented aggrandizement of judicial authority in violation of established case law that frankly strikes not only at President Trump and this administration, but both political branches. That is enormously dangerous.
And to that point, you say it's no longer simply about the executive order. It's also, in addition to the aggrandizement of the judiciary, which is obviously not foreseen in the structure of our Constitution, it is also leaving the nation vulnerable to a national security threat. While as the court has made this ruling, and that might limit, might it not, Josh, the option that David has proposed here, which is to wait it out because American lives, quite frankly, are at risk.
One of the most remarkable things about this opinion was the judges actually said the government has provided 0 evidence that anyone from these 7 countries have perpetrated an attack on the United States. Not that they were suspects or they were arrested, that they perpetrated an attack. So the opinion basically said unless you can show that someone from one of these 7 countries actually engaged in an act of terrorism, that will not be adequate to justify the ban. That's a remarkable assertion of a judicial statement. That's remarkable.
It is remarkable, and it's also bizarre because that would be effectively saying to all of our intelligence agencies that you have concluded that there is a risk of a date certain in a way in which Americans will be killed, our property destroyed in a terrorist attack, but dismissing it because it hasn't occurred yet. David, that's
exactly
that is true. But
that's bizarre.
Well, it's more than bizarre. To inject a note of sanity here, the Supreme Court, in a number of cases dealing with foreign policy affairs, cases like Dames versus Moore, Chicago Airlines, has held clearly the judiciary is institutionally incapable and constitutionally precluded from intruding in this sphere, precisely because they have neither the resources nor the knowledge to engage in threat assessment.
Right.
So it's not only a bad threat assessment, to emphasize, Lou, they're not supposed to engage in any threat assessment, even if it was a better one.
Yeah,
and I'll give you one
yes,
better.
Go ahead, Josh.
The court actually said that that the Trump administration should submit classified information to the court, so the court can review the classified information in its own stead. That was what they suggested.
Yeah, this is, you know, it's given all that's going on in this country, our highly contested and controversial presidential election, heated, the alienation, the polarization, and now a judiciary that is so politicized that it is frankly rancid with the prospect of partisanship and an ideological judgment rather than a judicial system that's ready to, to make an honest, open, objective decision. It's a terrible thing. Let me ask you both I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just one thing. If this logic was applied before, the decisions of exactly the same nature by the previous 5 presidents all would have been set aside. President Obama, President Clinton, President Reagan, both Bushes. The fact that we have people who challenge this decision just indicates nothing more than rampant use of lawfare, which is, I'm a lawyer, but law is law. Lawfare is an entirely different animal.
David Rifkin, thanks for being with us. Josh Blackman, thank you very much. Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Up next, President Trump has vowed to make Mexico pay for that border wall. One leftist Mexican politician is so outraged about that, guess what? He's coming to the United States. I'll take that up next with Ed Rollins. Who invited him? Who gave him the visa? What's going on here? Who else could we bring in? Vladimir Putin? Who knows? My guest, Ed Rollins, and I take that up and much more next. We'll be right back. Past candidate will be visiting the United States this weekend. He's coming here to talk about what he calls President Trump's, quote, poisonous rhetoric. Speaking of poisonous rhetoric, referring to his rhetoric as poisonous seems like poisonous rhetoric to me. How about you? Two-time presidential runner-up Andrés Manuel López Obrador claims the President of the United States has shown a lack of respect for his country. So what is he doing? He's arriving in Los Angeles Sunday to talk with illegal immigrants who've shown something less than full respect for our borders and American citizens. López Obrador is leading in opinion polls for next year's elections. I don't suppose there's any correlation between his ambitions and his visit. Back with me now, veteran of 10 presidential campaigns and Republican strategist Ed Rollins. Great to have you back, Ed.
Thank you very much.
Obrador. Who gave him the visa? Who said you can come in and rabble-rouse?
Well, first of all, he's a two-time loser. That'd be the first thing going out on the Trump tweet, I'm sure, is don't let this loser. And secondly, I think you monitor it. I mean, what I would do, obviously, if I was advising the president, which I'm not, I think it's very important that he brings Secretary Kelly over tomorrow, the head of Homeland Security, the former four-star Marine, and say, you now have the responsibility to make sure this vetting, what I want, what I try to do in this judicial system, and we'll pursue a judicial process here.
This is following on with the Ninth Circuit Court ruling.
But right now, it's your responsibility and the people in Homeland Security, the largest agency in government, to enforce our border, our rules. And you know what I want, and I want it done.
Yeah, and maybe I have, you know, the four-star general, General Kelly, meet Obrador, you know, at the airport as well, and start negotiating that price tag.
It's good that he's going to L.A. He can meet with Pelosi and he can meet with Jerry Brown and all the illegals out there and basically talk about what it's going to be like when California is a separate state, separate nation.
All the swells.
All the swells.
You know, it seemed to me the president was in good humor. You know, he was not visibly frustrated. He was very controlled today. He's obviously disappointed and frustrated, but his tone and his constraint, I thought, was apparent and commendable.
You have to understand, he's got real experience now. He's been in the office for 3 weeks, so I mean, obviously.
Well, not until tomorrow.
Obviously, he's a lot more confident than he was.
Do you love the way? And I will refer to Senator Schumer as the head clown, as the president does, out of respect to the president. The head clown is sitting there making all of these ridiculous remarks and claims and going on about his policies. He's been in office 3 weeks tomorrow, and it just seems like an absurd moment in history for the left to be reacting and overreacting and being so just simply vile.
What I love is Schumer again tonight saying, you know, let's have bipartisanship. I mean, who's leading the? Put 10 of your partisans on the line saying we'll vote for something. I'd be more willing to listen to that kind of discussions. They are very, very anti-Trump, and will be for the rest of this term.
Yeah. Ed, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Good. Ed Rollins. Up next, President Trump accusing the Ninth Circuit Court of playing politics tonight, ruling against his order.
It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a
We have a situation where the security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court.
Attorney, former law clerk for Supreme Court Justice Alito. Barbara Smith joins us here next. Stay with us. We're coming right back. In our online poll last night, we asked, do you believe the fate of the nation depends on how quickly President Trump can start moving conservative judges into the left-wing judicial system? 91% of you say yes. Well, joining me now, attorney Barbara Smith. She served as law clerk to Justice Samuel Alito. Barbara, good to have you with us. And
hi, thanks for having me on.
I know that you follow the judicial system closely in all respects, and the appellate, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, they've lived up to their reputation here tonight, don't you think?
Indeed, they have. And I think that there's a lot that's troubling about the merits of the court's opinion, and I'm happy to dive into one issue that I found particularly troubling, and that is the court's evaluation of the government's likelihood of succeeding on the merits of their case. The thing that I find troubling about that particular part of the analysis is that the court said, well, we have due process concerns as this executive order applies to lawful permanent residents. But the administration has made very clear in a policy memorandum issued by the White House counsel to the relevant agency heads that says this executive order doesn't apply to lawful permanent residents. And the court basically just disregarded that, what I think to be crucial fact in its analysis.
That's an interesting point, because the ruling itself, on its face, I mean, these folks, along with the district court judge in the Western District of the state of Washington, are making judgments about national security as if they had both the standing, the expertise, and available knowledge of the available evidence about the intent of those who are terrorists. I mean, it's really a striking and peculiar order in that respect as well, don't you think?
Well, you hit on an important point, which is that this is a case that involves both issues of national security and also issues, obviously, of immigration. And when it comes to national security and immigration, the Constitution is actually pretty clear that those are the provinces of the political branches of Congress and the president. And in this case, we have an example of Congress and the president agreeing on what the policy of the nation should be when it comes to the ability to suspend immigration for certain classes of aliens. And the court has stepped in and disagreed with that policy judgment, which, in my view, is probably not the proper role of the court.
And the likelihood of success in a court, a Supreme Court, that is evenly split ideologically, politically, and what should the president do?
Well, so I think he has a couple of options. He could obviously seek an emergency appeal of the decision to the Supreme Court, which, as you mentioned, currently has 8 members, so that might be a tough option for him. He could also seek en banc review before a larger panel of 11 judges on the Ninth Circuit and hope that he gets judges that maybe have a different view of the law. Or he could say, all right, I'm going to sort of abandon the TRO posture of this case, go back to the trial judge and pursue the merits of the claim and see how the rest of the case unfolds.
Do you know, President Trump looks all the more sagacious and courageous in running as a populist and anti-establishment candidate. When we look at the court system and what he is up against in corporate America and academia, the left in this country, and now confronting the court system, which is so just rife with bias and ideological preference that frankly, I don't know how you could convince any American that they could get a fair trial and be treated equally under the law anywhere in this country.
Well, I'm certainly not going to impute the motives of federal court judges. I think they're probably following their own conscience.
You have to practice before them.
Well, and I think reasonable people can disagree on what the law says. I happen to think it's pretty clear in this area and that the Ninth Circuit got it wrong. But I certainly don't think that they were motivated by political concerns. They just have a different view of what the law is. The wrong view, in my opinion, but a different view.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that these wrong views, at least in your opinion and mine, all seem to originate in courts dominated by liberals and democratically appointed justices and judges? I mean, at some point you have to defer, it seems to me, reasonably to the evidence and the causal relationship between the two. And that's what I was referring to, Barbara, when I said partisanship is rife in our court system, politicization.
Well, I certainly think you're right to highlight that the nomination of strict constructionists and constitutionalists to the Federal Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court is extremely important.
Barbara, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank
Barbara
you.
Smith. And that's it for us tonight. We thank you for being with us in our special coverage of the Ninth Circuit Court decision. A quick programming note, I'll be joining Sean Hannity tonight. Watch us at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Fox News channel. Fred Barnes, Kimberly Guilfoyle among my guests tomorrow. Good night.